Time for the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams for their second practice of this Friday here at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Dark clouds lurking, looming. 50% chance, or more than that, of showers. 50% humidity, temperature in the low 80s here in Loudon, New Hampshire. Glad you're back with us as our coverage continues. And we talked in the Sprint Cup Series practice about the fact that there have been 18 different winners in 28 Sprint Cup events here. But Larry, one of the most unusual stats in all of NASCAR racing, 22 races here in the Nationwide Series, there has never been a repeat winner.
I actually forgot about that. And
person.
actually, on Tuesday, when I read that, I went, no. I got to look at the book. This can't be right. And sure enough, there it is. 22 races, 22 different winners. But I think it's a lot, even the fact that there's not a lot of repeat winners in the Sprint Cup Series here. Every time we come back here, something has changed. Something has changed about the racetrack. Goodyear has brought a different tire, and I think a lot of reason is the fact, just like in Sprint Cup, a lot of times someone pulls a rabbit out of the hat at the end of the race and pulls off strategy. But when you think about it, of those 22 drivers, only 7 are entered in this race. So very well, when the checkered flag falls tomorrow, we could have 23 races, 23 different winners.
Jeff, in Sprint Cup Series practice, you talked about agendas as it relates to the points and drivers trying to get in the chase. Well, they don't have a chase here, but what is the story?
The story is whether or not these guys who are up in the points right now, can Kyle Busch hold off Carl Edwards? Last week, Carl Edwards finally got back to victory lane, got a chance to do his patented backflip, but he comes to a racetrack that's a lot like Milwaukee. Here at Loudon, flat 1 mile racetrack, you got to believe they brought back the same car. They're ready to try to continue chasing down Kyle Busch. And for Kyle Busch, well, he's not going to let that happen if he's got anything to say about it. So it'll be a real interesting battle between those two. But guys like Brad Keselowski and some of the other guys that are still in contention here, they want to make it happen. And like what Larry's been saying all along, you never know who's going to be the surprise winner this weekend or this year. So a lot of things up for grabs. Don't worry about points, folks. Let's get out there and try to win races.
Let's go down to the garage and check in with Ralph Shaheen.
Steve, based on the NASCAR Nationwide Series rulebook, you're limited on the amount of tires you can use in the course of a weekend. So I just spoke with Jason Kell a little while ago, and he said you really don't want to use another set of tires in this practice. They're going to use the same set that they ran in practice number 1 this morning, get through this session with the current set of tires, and then put a fresh set on for qualifying later. That makes things a little bit tricky because the track is already slippery. A used set of tires makes it pretty tough, Bob Dillner, to find a good setup when you get ready for qualifying.
Well, this practice could be tough, Ralph, for other reasons as well. It's a race against time for many of the teams because right now a weather front is moving in. Rain in Manchester already about a half an hour from Loudon, New Hampshire, where New Hampshire Motor Speedway is located. For Kyle Busch, he wants to get as many laps as he can early in this practice session until the rain comes, and that's because the 18 wasn't very good in that first practice session. Tight is all Kyle Busch told me going into this practice session. Now, next door in the garage area, the guy that he's challenging for the championship, Carl Edwards, he was very pleased. That team tells me they're not going to turn too many laps on that car during this practice session because the balance is exactly how they like it, guys.
And you know, if that car was tight earlier, the sun was out and it was hot. I got to believe, Jeff, now it's probably even going to turn worse. It's going to be even tighter as much as this track has cooled down.
It's cooled down, plus there's more rubber on the racetrack than what it was earlier that day this morning when they first went out. So totally different racetrack than what Kyle was working with. So hopefully they made a big swing on this 18th and make the right kind of adjustments, get him back where he can be competitive tomorrow.
In first practice today, Clint Boyer was the fastest. He's in the number 29 Holiday Inn Chevrolet this weekend, followed by Scott Speed, Elliott Sadler, Kevin Harvick, and Kenny Wallace. 14 drivers doing double duty on a quadruple header weekend. The modified cars race here, as well as the Camping World East teams.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, Steve, because when you think about this is final practice for these Nationwide Series cars. As we watched Carl Edwards, the winner from Milwaukee last week, these guys will not hit the racetrack again until in the morning, about 10 o'clock local time for qualifying. Guess what all is going to happen in between this practice and their qualifying? We're going to have 2 cup practice sessions, not too bad. But the big thing is the NASCAR Camping World East race this afternoon, a totally different tire. They put a different rubber. So there'll be a lot of guesswork in between when this practice ends and when you roll your car through inspection for qualifying.
Well, what I think you got to tell your driver and everything is it's not going to be good but it will get better, Larry. I mean, you've got to believe that the more you run this race, the car is going to come to you, the track's going to come to you. So this is where you really have to weigh heavy, basically put a heavy burden on these drivers' shoulders to be able to carry the car and be patient enough to let it come to them. Don't overreact and change your car for the driver just because it's not good now or the way you think it's going to be. You got to deal with it a little bit.
Carl Edwards, 4 Nationwide Series starts here in New Hampshire. A win. He's been second twice. His worst finish, 5th.
And you know more amazing about this 60 team in 2009. We've had 15 Nationwide Series races. Now, mind you, last week at Milwaukee, Colin Brown had to qualify this car for Carl as he was making the trip from Infineon, qualified 11th. But do you know that's the only outside the top 10 qualifying effort that this team has had in 2009? They always start up front, which in the shorter Nationwide Series races, that's not a bad thing.
Early in this practice, it's Justin Allgaier leading the way, followed by Paul Menard, Carl Edwards, Kyle Busch, and Kevin Harvick. Stay with us. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Nationwide Series practice from Loudon is brought to you by Nationwide Insurance, official auto insurance provider of NASCAR. 8 minutes into this NASCAR Nationwide Series practice, their second of today. 14 drivers doing double duty here on the Magic Mile.
Including those 2 cars we just saw, the 10 car of Elliott Sadler and also the 29 car of Clint Boyer. That's 2 of those guys. Interesting story about this 29 car. This car runs the full schedule, but the ride is shared by Clint Boyer, who's in it this weekend, Jeff Burton, and Stephen Light. Now, these 3 drivers got a little bet going early in the season. And after the race next week, when the checkered flag flies at Daytona, of those 3 drivers, whichever driver has the most wins, which right now is 0, this car's not been to victory lane, are the best average finish for the remaining part of 2009, no matter who's in it, that driver's name will be above the door. Now, here's what's a little unfair. Clint Boyer is leading it right now. Clint's in the car here in Daytona. If he just averages a 12th place finish here in Daytona, Jeff Burton, Stephen Light will have to drive that car the rest of the year with Clint Boyer's name above the door.
Bob Dillner has an update on Brad Keselowski.
Guys, Brad Keselowski has been one of the hottest drivers in the NASCAR Nationwide Series over the last 10 races or so. In fact, 10 top 10s in the last 11 races, 8 of those top 5 finishes with a win. So he's looking for a good run here in Loudon. He's only run here once, a 9th place finish last year. He's 9th on the board right now. They're changing a pair of rear shocks on this machine, but there is an issue, and I got a question for the crew chiefs up in the booth with you, Steve. Right now, Brad Keselowski is reporting he's feeling the car really pull to the left early in the run when he's on the brakes, but it fades away and kind of dissipates. It doesn't happen again the longer he goes into the run. So what might he be feeling, and what might they need to do to this 88 machine, guys?
Stay off the brakes, driver, and it won't pull like that. No, to me, it sounds to me like an air pressure deal more than anything else. The more it builds up air pressure, it kind of goes away. But also the weight transfer of the car itself. I mean, if you've got it full of fuel, low on air pressure, and you first start out, it's going to give a different feeling compared to when it burns the fuel off, air pressure comes up.
You know, Bob was talking about Brad Keselowski being one of the hottest drivers on the circuit. This cat right here, Jason Leffler in this 38 car, finished 10th at Milwaukee. That was his 10th consecutive top 10 finish, and he's sitting there 4th in the points just behind Keselowski in that 88 car. Still looking for the first win of 2009, though.
Jason Leffler, 6th overall. Let's go to Ralph.
This is Brendan Gaughan's number 62. Boy, they've been changing stuff down here like you would see it on pit road, not in the garage area, and that's because the rain has already started to fall. We're getting pelted a little bit with drops down here. Brendan ready to back out. Not a good car in practice this morning. So guys, you're just rushing through changes on the car like you would on pit road, not like you normally pace yourself in the garage area when you discuss setup changes. Here, they're throwing things on it, going back out, bringing them in, throwing it on it, going back out again.
Well, Ralph, as we mentioned, if the rain moves in here, this may be the last laps that these cars get on this racetrack, with the exception of qualifying in the morning and then the 200-lap race tomorrow afternoon.
Nothing wrong with trying to make quick changes as long as they've already been kind of like laid out to where you can execute them, you know, real quickly. But right now we do have weather on the racetrack. Caution has come out. We'll bring these cars back to pit road.
Jeff,
And one of the things right now, Brendan Gaughan and those guys that didn't get an opportunity to get on the racetrack will have to turn around and head back to the garage area.
Jason Keller, one of those 22 drivers who have been to Victory Lane here in New Hampshire.
And he's run about as many laps as anybody in this practice session. He's run 12. Clint Boyer's run 15th. Jason 10th quickest.
All right, who was the first driver to win in the Nationwide Series here in 1990?
Was it Kenny Wallace?
Close. Jeff Hammond?
Dale Earnhardt?
Tommy Ellis.
Tommy Ellis.
Next week, Speed has 2 heart-pounding nights of Wrecked. First, catch an all-new episode Thursday night at 10 Eastern. Then the action continues with a Wrecked Marathon Friday night beginning at 8 Eastern as well. Get hooked on Wrecked, Life in the Crash Lane. We are under caution for a few raindrops. Also just saw some lightning outside turn 2. Let's go to the garage and Ralph Shaheen.
Well, Steve, over my shoulder, you'll see the scoring monitor here in Clint Boyer's garage. Jerry says that he is 8th on the board in your Holiday Inn car. Now, you're not running the entire season this year. You won the championship last year. So how different is it for you to get in and out of the car this year as opposed to last season?
It's quite a bit different. I mean, the Holiday Inn Chevrolet, it's always fast, always fun to drive. But, you know, last year it was just kind of second nature. You're in it every week anyway, and you didn't realize how big a difference it really is. But, you know, just getting a race, I think it's been over a month since I've run it. So it's quite a bit different. It takes some getting used to. The tire's a little bit different, so everybody was really loose. We were really, really loose when we started, tightened it up a bunch, and it's kind of worried about maybe going too far. But we started that practice inching a little bit, you know, more of that free side back into it, and it was too much again. So she wants to be a little bit snugger, and we're going to make it tighter.
Okay, now you guys have a little bit of battle going on between you and your buddies that are sharing the car a little bit about who gets the name over the door, and you got your name on there right now. Is it going to stay?
Man, I don't know. I ain't even been paying attention to that. We've been focused so hard on the Cup deal and trying to get things turned around over there. I really don't know where I stand. Hopefully, if I can just win a race, I'll put that whole deal to bed.
All right, let's go to Bob Dillner.
Well, Kyle Busch loves flat racetracks, but he has never won here at New Hampshire, and it is really coming down now here in the garage area, and that's not what Kyle Busch wanted to see. You see Joey Logano going over to talk to Kyle Busch, but we told you at the beginning of this broadcast that he wanted at least 10 laps on the racetrack. He's gotten that. He's 5th quick actually right now on the speed charts. But instead of being really, really tight to start off with, Kyle Busch has now got this car where he's a little bit loose at the start of the run, and then it finally tightens up the more he goes into that run. But he does not like that condition either, so they're scratching their heads in the 18 pit trying to figure out what they need to do to this race car and hopefully get back out into the racetrack for more practice here in this final practice session. Ralph?
Bob, right now number 16 is number 18 on the charts. How's your car? Not as good as you'd hope, I take it.
Well, not quite as good. You know, we had a lot of laps on our tires, trying a lot of stuff in that first practice. So we just put stickers on there and made 2 laps, and the rain came out. We're behind the 28 car, so we didn't really get a chance to put a fast lap down on this practice. But I feel decent about the way the car's driving. City Financial car, and these guys are doing a good job working on it for me. We'll see what it's like tomorrow.
Spent a lot of time talking about the different rubber that's going to get laid down on the track with the different series that are all competing here. Yet we've got rain as well. Does that help that, wash that away, or does it just add to the complexity of the weekend?
Having trouble with the microphone there, so we'll take this opportunity to go back to Bob Dillner.
Down here in the garage area with Carl Edwards, and spoke to your crew before this practice session. They said, we got it all figured out. This car is darn good. How about during this very quick practice session that we've had here so far?
It seems pretty fast. You know, the ortho fusion is good. We definitely don't have any fire ants or any bugs like that around the garage area, so that's been good so far. But the balance is pretty good. You know, coming off of last week in Milwaukee, we were real fast there, and this track's very similar, and the guys have done a really good job. So I think we've got a competitive race car.
I was listening to something you said this weekend on one of the pre-race weekend shows. I want to know how important this weekend is. You know, Roush Fenway, you got the Boston Red Sox down the road. They're not in town this weekend, but I know this is really special to you, all you guys with Roush Fenway.
Yeah, John Henry and all the folks at the Fenway group have been they've been really great to work with, to say the least. I mean, they're very cool. You know, John Henry's he's a race fan first and foremost. I got to try out his iRacing stuff there in the media center a little while ago. You know, he develops that software, and that's really cool. And they're race fans, man. And and I'm becoming a Red Sox fan. That way we've had a good time out there at the ball field. So it'd be really cool to get a win for those guys here.
Carl Edwards hoping for a big one. He could be the first repeat winner here ever in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, right, guys, if he pulls into victory lane tomorrow.
And I'm going to tell you what, Bob, and Jeff and Steve are talking about how similar this racetrack is to Milwaukee, and I think Carl just alluded to that as well. And as I mentioned, I think in the Sprint Cup Series practice, this is the exact tire combination that they ran there as well. So when you think about it, if you ran good at Milwaukee last week, you should roll in here and be very, very tunable.
Very, very tunable. And the other part of it right now, if there's somebody sitting here thinking, go ahead and rain, I don't care. There's one guy that probably feels like if it had to, I have to get rained out of a practice and maybe not get a chance to start the race even tomorrow. If it was getting rained out tomorrow, it would be Carl Edwards, because they know that they've got a good package coming off a very successful weekend. Again, he's not mind this rain at all.
Rain's coming down in a big way right now. The Nationwide Series teams are scheduled to qualify at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning here at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
There we are, right there.
For High and Dry. Heavy rain surrounding the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. NASCAR Nationwide Series practice has been halted. They did have one practice earlier this morning, and they are scheduled to qualify tomorrow at 10 a.m. However, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series teams scheduled to qualify at about 3:10 Eastern here in New Hampshire.
You know, guys, while we've got a rain delay here, you know, this is the second full season that in Sprint Cup we've been running the new car of tomorrow. And then, of course, if you go back to 2007, we raced it in 16 races, including here at Loudon, New Hampshire in 2007. NASCAR has been working for several years also a version of the car tomorrow for the Nationwide Series. One of the goals is to make the chassis and the frames and the roll cage and everything pretty much comparable between Sprint Cup and the Nationwide Series cars. It will have a little different look. It almost goes back to the muscle car look. And competition director for the Nationwide Series, Joe Ballich, confirmed recently that NASCAR is considering, keyword being considering, introducing this new car into the Nationwide Series in 2010. I think this is a good move if they're going to do it at the 2 road course races as well as the 3 restrictor plate races. So that's right now, that could happen in 2010 at those 5 races for the Nationwide Series.
And Larry, while you're talking about subjects, and if you weren't with us on the first practice earlier this morning, y'all look really for the Nationwide Series to adopt the double file restart, probably starting as early as next week at Daytona. They're still, doing last minute considerations, but it's worked so well in the Sprint Cup Series. I think they really feel like it's just about time maybe for them to bring it to the Nationwide Series, and eventually it'll wind up going to the Camping World Truck Series too, but they're going to kind of like phase that in, but it'll be a little bit later on down the road.
I think we got Ralph's microphone all sorted out, so we'll send it back to Mr. Shaheen.
Hey, the microphone's working, but Eric Darnell is with me. Look at this, Eric. I got the shortest mic cable in the world. You're going to have to help me out here a little bit, buddy. How's your car? It's like 11th on the board right now. Did you feel good about it?
Yeah, actually I did. Our Northern Tool and Equipment Ford, I feel, is pretty good in race trim right now. We struggled a little bit at Milwaukee last weekend in practice. Didn't get the car where we needed it to be, and we struggled during the race too. I feel like Mike Kelly and all the guys in this crew have done a really good job with our Ford. It's turning really good. I think we're only 11th right now, but I feel like our times in race trim are pretty competitive, and hopefully we'll have a good qualifying run tomorrow, start up front, and be able to keep it up there.
Is your Milwaukee setup and your Loudon setup real similar, or how different are they?
They're fairly similar, but we've got a different car here. From a fan's perspective, I think Milwaukee and Loudon, you could say they look the same. They're both flat 1-mile tracks, but from a driver's perspective, they drive a lot different. So they're close, but not quite the same. This place just drives a little bit different than Milwaukee does. And again, this is a new car. This is something that David ran at Phoenix earlier this year, David Reagan, and I haven't run it yet, but things turning pretty good so far. I'm pretty happy with it.
Bob Dillner, if you have the same mic cable I do as tall as you are, you're in big trouble.
No, luckily for me, I have a mic cable that's just a little bit longer than yours, Ralph. But one guy that's looking for a good run here this weekend, Joey Logano, 12th quick so far, 12 laps in the books, and the rain's come. You were talking to Kyle Busch, and it was like a big conference over there. What were you guys talking about?
I was talking about our race cars. Typical deal there. Just seeing what we can do to make our cars go a little faster. We got a rookie set of tires. I'm a rookie here, so we actually didn't get to put them on. We put them on and actually went out there, made 2 corners, and started raining. So it's interesting to see what those are going to do. But besides that, I think we have a good GameStop Toyota. I think it was good in the first practice. This practice, I didn't think it was as good. I know we made a little bit of changes there, but it's tough when you go from the Cup side to the Nationwide side, and then say, hey, what was different with your Nationwide car? Shoot, I just made 100 laps over there, and everything gets erased out of your mind. So, it's kind of tough to back-to-back things after you've been in another car for an hour and a half. But, I still think this car is pretty good. I'm sure we're not getting back out.
I could see the intensity in your eyes, though, when you were talking to Kyle and so forth, because this weekend very important to you. You're from Connecticut, New Englander, and this is home for you. How important is a good run here?
It'd be awesome, on either side. I mean, Zippy's from up here too, and this is his joint too. So, it'd be awesome to run here. You got a lot of family and friends around here, so it'd be cool. It'd be cool to get a win on either side.
Joey Logano hoping the rain clears so he can at least qualify that Cup car, but I don't know about nationwide practice, Ralph.
Brian Vickers is out of his car, Bob, and you're saying you had a pretty good session, even though it was a short one?
Yeah, we were a lot better this session than we were the first. The Dollar General Toyota was okay to start with in the first practice. We kind of chased a couple of things and made some other things worse. So we just kind of started over in this practice and was really happy with the car, especially there in the long run. We came in to make one change, but I feel like we needed to help the car roll the center, and we didn't make it back out before the rain.
So how big will your gamble be for your setup for qualifying?
We haven't made a qualifying trim, so it's going to be a little bit of a gamble for sure, but we're mainly focused on the race. I think if we can get the car to rotate a little bit better in the center, we'll be really good in the race, and we'll just do our best in qualifying.
Okay, when you talk about rotating in the center, for those of us that don't drive one of these as fast as you guys do, or drive them at all for that matter, how close to being good at rotating in the center are you? Can you explain that a little bit more and break it down in a little more average guy terminology?
Absolutely, if you have the time.
Look at the rain out there.
It looks like you have time. Basically when we talk about the cars, we talk about tight or loose, and tight is essentially when you go down the turn and you're trying to make a left-hand turn and you turn the wheel, but the front's not working. The front tires aren't turning, and you're just chattering. Here, the tires tend to chatter a lot. You'll hear that a lot on the radio, chatter, chatter, chatter. That's where literally you have a vibration coming from the front tires, or the rear tires for that matter. So you're losing the front tires to the center of the corner, and that's what we're fighting right now. Right now on a 1 to 10, we're about a 2 or a 3 tight in the center, maybe a little bit worse on the long run, but which, that's enough that it'll take you from maybe first to fifth on a time sheet, I'd say. For me, as far as my scale is concerned, everybody uses something different. Some people just use really, really tight, and some people use numbers, and people use a pile of whatever. And then we talk about loose. It's when basically you go in the turn, you turn the wheel, and the back of the car is going towards the wall. So essentially you're going through a left-hand turn, and you're turning right to save the car from spinning out. Right now, we're the opposite. We're tight, we're losing the nose, we're pushing the car through the center, and it's actually picking up a little bit of a tire chatter. You can get that anywhere at any racetrack, but we find that the tire combination and the pavement here at Loudon, you see it a lot, and you'll see it a lot on the restarts. You'll hear a lot of guys complain about tire chatter front and rear for 2, 3, 4 laps.
Steve, the way he described all that, I think Hammond and McReynolds better get nervous. He gets done with his driving career. That was a pretty good TV audition.
That was a pretty good explanation. Very good.
He should be on NASCAR Performance. Oh, wait a minute. I bet drivers aren't allowed.
But you know what? You can tune into the NASCAR Performance tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and again Sunday morning at 9 a.m. We're going to talk about fuel cells, fuel pickups, fuel hoses. What is it, Hammond?
And he's a driver. He'd have to be replacing Darrell, not me and Larry.
Exactly. Double dip. Still raining here at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, right in the middle of NASCAR Nationwide Series practice. Lightning in the area as well.
Steve, I feel like we should explain something that Joey Logano said, his rookie set of tires. Ralph Shaheen at the top of the show talked about a limited set of tires for this Nationwide Series. They get 6 sets as long as they turn 1 set back in. But if you're a rookie, and this is Joey Logano's first start here in the Nationwide Series, you get an extra set of tires to practice on, but you have to turn them back in. You can't save them to race on.
Yeah, he'd like to, but you can't do that. But that young man right there is definitely accelerating his learning curve in recent weeks. He's getting better not only in the Nationwide Series each and every week, but also the Sprint Cup Series.
We're going to step aside for just a little bit, but we're not going anywhere. We're hoping to get Sprint Cup Series qualifying in a little bit after 3 o'clock. When we come back, we'll go to the speed stage. And John Roberts.
Here's Johnny.